Buffalo, we need to talk. Something is brewing in Bills Mafia, and it is not the good kind of brewing. It's not championship energy. It's not Super Bowl swagger. It's something colder, something sneakier, a slow-burning skepticism that has crept into the hearts of even the most loyal fans. And today, we're ripping the lid off it. Because here's the thing about Buffalo Bills fans, they don't quit. They don't bail. They don't jump ship the way fans of lesser franchises do. Bills Mafia is built different. They've weathered 4 straight AFC championship losses. They've weathered playoff heartbreak after playoff heartbreak, and through it all, they kept believing. But this offseason hit different. And insiders are now warning that the fan base itself might be quietly fracturing. Let's set the scene. In one of the most bizarre offseasons in recent Buffalo Bills history, the team fired head coach Sean McDermott after what most would call a wildly successful run. At the exact same time, general manager Brandon Beane, the man many fans hold just as responsible for years of postseason disappointment, got promoted. Let that sink in. The coach is gone. The GM gets more power. If that doesn't sound like a franchise sending mixed signals, we don't know what does. And it didn't stop there. The Bills went out and traded for wide receiver DJ Moore, a move that was supposed to be a jolt of excitement for this offense. Instead, it was met with waves of criticism, both about the contract the team took on and what exactly Buffalo gave up to get him. Then came the draft. Day 1, day 2, and according to a growing chorus of fans and analysts, both fell flat. No fireworks, no statement pick, just more of the same conservative, play-it-safe approach that has defined this front office for years. Then Buffalo added veteran pass rusher Bradley Chubb in free agency, a name that sounds exciting on paper, but as we'll get into shortly, might be a move that solves absolutely nothing about this team's biggest weakness up front. And then there's Josh Allen himself, 30 years old now, a father, the unquestioned face of the franchise. And yet, for the first time in years, there's real anxiety bubbling under the surface about his future, about the window closing, about whether this era of Buffalo Bills football, an era defined by one of the most electric quarterbacks the NFL has ever seen, might slip away without ever reaching the mountaintop. Oh, and let's not forget the brand new stadium. Fans were buzzing with excitement when it was first announced, a shiny, state-of-the-art new home for the Bills. But since it's opened its doors, mostly complaints, mostly criticism. Not exactly the triumphant new chapter Buffalo was hoping for. So what do you get when you stack all of that together? A fan base standing at a psychological crossroads. And according to insiders close to the pulse of Bills Mafia, there's actually a fascinating way to explain exactly what's happening inside the minds of these fans right now. Picture it like a bell curve. On one end, you've got what's being called the leading homers, the diehards who will believe in this team no matter what happens, no matter what the record says, no matter what the roster looks like. They are a small, loyal, unshakable minority. On the complete opposite end, you've got the haters, fans who have already decided everything is doomed, and no amount of winning will ever change their mind. They're rare too, just as rare as the blind optimists, just facing the opposite direction. But here's where it gets interesting. The vast majority of Bills Mafia lives in one of 2 middle buckets. There are the lagging homers, fans who might not love a move at first, might grumble about a trade or a draft pick, but who eventually come around, usually by the time training camp rolls in or by kickoff of week 1. Then there are the situationalists, fans who reserve judgment entirely, who need to see results before they buy in, who operate off pure evidence rather than blind faith or blind rage. And what analysts are now noticing is a mass migration happening in real time. Fans who used to be lagging homers, the ones who always eventually came around, are sliding into situationalist territory. They're no longer giving this front office the automatic benefit of the doubt. Why? Because that benefit of the doubt has a shelf life. And after years of unresolved frustration, after a coaching change that didn't come with a full organizational reset, after watching the same general manager who presided over years of near misses get handed even more power, that patience is wearing thin. Think about it like this. If Buffalo had wiped the slate completely clean this offseason, new coach, new GM, a true fresh start, fans who are naturally inclined to trust the organization would have had a brand new reason to trust again. But because Brandon Beane remained in power, because the structure stayed largely the same even as the sideline boss changed, the goodwill fans once extended automatically has started eroding. The result? A fan base leaning more skeptical, more guarded, more show me than it has been in years. And look, that skepticism isn't happening in a vacuum. It's being fueled by some seriously alarming numbers buried inside Buffalo's own offensive production. Here's the jaw-dropping stat that has fans and analysts stunned. Back in 2021, the Buffalo Bills averaged 10.8 offensive possessions per game, good for fifth best in the entire NFL. Fast forward to 2025, and that number has fallen all the way down to just 10 possessions per game, a ranking of 27th in the league. Let that number marinate for a second. In just 5 years, Buffalo has gone from a top 5 offense in terms of opportunities to a bottom 3rd offense in terms of opportunities. And we're not talking about a small dip. We're talking about nearly a full possession lost per game every single game over an entire season. That's touchdowns evaporating. That's yards vanishing into thin air. That's chances for Josh Allen to do what he does best, disappearing before he even steps onto the field. And here's the part that should really make Bills Mafia furious. Opposing defensive coordinators have spent years explaining exactly how they want to attack Josh Allen, and the answer is always the same. Limit his possessions. Keep him on the sideline as much as humanly possible. Slow the game down. Because the less football Josh Allen plays, the less damage Josh Allen can do. It is, quite literally, the blueprint that opposing teams use to try and beat Buffalo. So here's the uncomfortable question that's been eating at Bills fans everywhere. Has Buffalo's own coaching staff been unintentionally doing the opposing team's job for them? The theory floating around explains it like this. As Sean McDermott became more hands-on with the offensive side of the ball in his later years, and as the Bills drifted further from the aggressive, pass-heavy identity they had under former offensive coordinator Brian Daboll, the team leaned harder and harder into heavy personnel groupings and a run-first approach. And on the surface, that sounds like it makes sense, right? Protect Josh Allen. Keep him out of harm's way. Reduce the hits he takes. But here's the twist. Slowing the game down and running the ball more doesn't just protect your quarterback, it also shrinks the number of possessions in a game. And when you're the team with a better quarterback, the superior offense, shrinking the number of possessions is one of the worst things you can possibly do. Why? Because every additional possession in a football game is another chance for the superior team to widen the gap. If Buffalo's offense is even 10% better than their opponents on any given Sunday, that 10% compounds with every single possession. More possessions means more opportunities for Josh Allen's talent to simply take over the game. Fewer possessions means Buffalo is voluntarily narrowing the margin, playing right into the hands of teams who know they can't out-talent the Bills, so instead they try to out-slow them. In other words, if you're the underdog, you want fewer possessions because it gives you a puncher's chance through a turnover, a special teams play, a lucky bounce. But if you're the favorite, if you've got a former MVP under center, you want the game wide open. You want as much football as possible. And according to insiders, that is exactly where Sean McDermott's philosophy quietly clashed with what should have been obvious. Trust the guy who makes you the best team in the league, not the scheme designed to protect against a team you're actually superior to. Critics are now pointing to this exact tension as one of the defining flaws of the McDermott era, a coach who, when the pressure mounted, would too often lean on his defense, lean on situational football, lean on out-coaching the other guy, rather than simply trusting his own generational quarterback to go win the game outright. So now the million-dollar question. What happens under new play caller Joe Brady? There's real reason for optimism here. Brady has publicly called himself a disciple of Sean Payton's aggressive, pass-driven offensive philosophy, not a disciple of the run-heavy, ball-control approach that defined the tail end of the McDermott era. And when you look at recent history, the same pattern shows up. When McDermott was more hands-off with the offense, Buffalo threw the ball more and moved faster. The moment McDermott got more hands-on, that aggression started to disappear. With McDermott now out of the building entirely, there's a real case to be made that Buffalo's offense is about to open back up in a major way. But, and this is a big but, there's a wrinkle. The moment Joe Brady took over play-calling duties, Buffalo's run rate actually went up, not down. So, does that mean Brady is secretly a run-first guy after all? Not necessarily. Some analysts are pushing back hard on that idea, warning fans not to fall into the same trap that plagued the McDermott era, mistaking a surface-level stat for the real underlying truth. Because here's what the numbers actually show when you dig deeper. It's not run rate that's been driving Buffalo's offensive success. It's negative play avoidance, quite simply. Not getting sacked, not turning the ball over, not putting your offense in a hole. The year Josh Allen won MVP, it wasn't because Buffalo ran the ball more. It was because Allen avoided back-breaking negative plays at a historic rate. And when a quarterback avoids sacks and turnovers, his team's chances of scoring on that drive skyrocket, regardless of whether the previous play was a run or a pass. This is exactly the kind of stat that could get twisted and misused. Imagine a coaching staff looking at Buffalo's improved point-per-drive numbers, seeing that the run rate went up at the same time, and wrongly concluding running the ball more is working, let's keep doing it, when really the actual driver of that success was smarter. Cleaner play calling that avoided disaster plays altogether. It's the classic trap of confusing correlation with causation, like the old internet meme comparing ice cream sales to polio outbreaks. Just because two things rise and fall together doesn't mean one is causing the other. The hope now, heading into 2026, is that Joe Brady threads that needle perfectly, keeping the smart, mistake-avoiding football that fueled Buffalo's recent success, while also opening the offense back up, increasing possessions, and letting Josh Allen loose the way he was during his most explosive MVP-caliber seasons. Now let's flip to the other side of the ball, because if the offense has been the quiet frustration of this era, the defense might be the biggest wild card of the entire 2026 season. Enter new defensive coordinator Jim Leonard. And if you're a Bills fan, you should be excited. Leonard's reputation is built on something incredibly valuable in the NFL: the ability to design a defense that looks incredibly complex to opposing offenses on the outside, but feels simple and instinctive to the players actually running it. That's the golden formula. Because the opposite, a defense that's simplistic on paper but absolutely loaded with checks, adjustments, and mental gymnastics for the players, tends to create exactly what fans watched Buffalo's defense turn into during the later McDermott years. Slow, overthinking, talented players moving a half step behind where they should be, because their brains were busy running through a mental flowchart instead of just reacting and playing fast. Leonard's background under Rex Ryan gives fans real reason for hope here. Ryan, for all his flaws as a head coach, trusted Leonard as the guy who could take complicated concepts and translate them into something players could execute at full speed. If Leonard can bring that same magic to Buffalo, simplifying the mental load while keeping the scheme deceptive to opposing quarterbacks, this defense could transform from frustrating but slow into fast, physical, and dangerous. But it's not all sunshine. There are real concerns bubbling beneath the surface. For starters, personnel, despite all the off-season buzz. Buffalo still doesn't have that specific archetype of explosive bend-and-burst edge rusher that modern defenses crave. Bringing in veteran Bradley Chubb was a solid, safe move. Nobody questions his leadership or his overall talent, but it didn't fundamentally change the type of player Buffalo has rushing the passer. And doubling down on a similar archetype with their first draft pick only compounds the concern. Buffalo may simply be missing the specific tools needed to fully unlock what Jim Leonard wants to do schematically. And then there's the coverage shift. Leonard's defense is expected to lean far more heavily into man coverage and single high safety looks, a dramatic departure from the more conservative, prevent the big play shell coverages Buffalo leaned on for years. That's a double-edged sword. Under McDermott, Buffalo's defense frustrated opponents with 1,000 tiny paper cuts, bend but don't break football that kept games close but rarely got directly torched. Under this new, more aggressive scheme, there's real risk of getting hit with the football equivalent of a javelin to the chest, a 60-yard touchdown bomb instead of a slow, methodical grind. And that risk is amplified by the fact that Buffalo's secondary has already dealt with injuries throughout training camp, robbing this new-look unit of crucial reps together before the games actually start to count. So where does that leave Bills Mafia heading into 2026? Cautiously optimistic, deeply skeptical, and everything in between, which, honestly, might be the most Buffalo Bills fan reaction of all time. This is a team with the same electric, generational quarterback, a revamped coaching staff hungry to prove themselves, a defensive philosophy that could either become must-watch, chaos-creating football, or a boom-or-bust liability that keeps fans up at night. Either way, one thing is certain, the Buffalo Bills of 2026 will look and feel like a completely different football team than the one fans have watched for the last several seasons. And really, isn't that the whole point? After years of heartbreak, after years of almost, Buffalo needed something to change. Now we wait, we watch, and we find out one game, one possession, one big play at a time, whether this new era finally gets Bills Mafia to that mountaintop they've been chasing for so long. So Bills Mafia, where do you fall on that fan spectrum? Are you a lagging homer ready to believe the second training camp wraps up? Or are you a hardened situationalist who needs to see it before you trust it? Drop your answer in the comments below. We want to hear exactly where your head's at heading into this season. If this video opened your eyes to what's really going on behind the scenes in Buffalo, smash that like button, drop a comment with your bold prediction for the 2026 season, and make sure you're subscribed so you never miss a breakdown like this one. We've got so much more Bills content coming your way all season long. Go Bills, and we'll see you in the next video.